Welcome everybody, live from the paddock, where you got some racing to talk about. A couple of races that we're a little behind on. Xander, Dorf, whatever, the Harry Potter, the Wizardly World up north. Monza, the Italian Stallion, then Singapore this week. We're going to talk about a lot of different stuff: traffic and qualifying, the race at Singapore. Was it the best race since Abu Dhabi 2021? We'll unpack that. We're going to talk about some fantasy. I've been making some moves in fantasy, which went way better than I thought.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Japan.
Boom.
You want to start with Xander Dorf? Xander.
Yeah.
What do you think about that race? I think the track is really cool. It has a lot of elevation and stuff.
Yeah, I do too. It's just tricky, right? I like the elevation. There's a lot of tricky turns,
banked corners.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a really cool track. I mean, obviously, Red Bull's on full form. They're cranking.
I've noticed some cars were a little bit better there than I was anticipating. Like Williams is really good there.
Albon
really
specifically,
good.
yeah, doing really good, which is cool.
I like the weather.
I like seeing that.
The weather helps some people too, with like kind of all over the place, and
it made it really tricky, right? Like for strategy, and I know as an enthusiast watching, it's fun. It's fun to see them just kind of freaking out a bit as like what we're gonna do, and every practice was
something different.
Rain, it's not raining. It's raining, it's not raining. It's clear. And like
first
every
3 laps of the race session. It's sunny. Never mind. Just kidding. It's gonna rain. And like go wet like for inters and bounce. And even at the end of the race too, like we got a little bit of a spritz of rain.
Yeah, and that always leads like some of those midfield teams into potentially having a chance if they nail the strategy, and some of the top front runners don't, right? And so that's always exciting to see. I think just as far as the race as a whole, or like the season as a whole, the midfield is so much tighter than it has been in previous seasons. And that gives us an opportunity for an Alex Albon, when they nail the setup, to start putting in some banger laps. Right now, their race pace wasn't quite as good, but didn't he qualify like 6th or something like that?
I know. Well, and then in Q2, he was like, I think he was P2 in Q2. He almost led the top of the leaderboard in one of the qualifying sessions, and then because he got it right, and then obviously some things got jumbled around, he got thrown to the next one, which for a Williams, and since I've been watching Formula One, for a Williams to be in Q3 is like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. And same thing goes back to even like last year when Haas got that pole before the sprint race at Brazil. So I mean, it's sick to see any of those guys.
Right?
Yeah, K-Mag. So anytime you see one of those lower guys get a pole and how amped they get, that's just super sweet to see. And and hopefully they take that momentum and run with it. You almost think like, shit, maybe Alex gets a better ride next year. What's it going to lead to? I don't know if it'll really lead to much. I think Alex definitely deserves a better ride than he has now.
I mean,
based on how he's been performing all year long.
Yeah.
He's been consistent. He's been showing up. Our boy Logan, on the other hand, he's
Logan. Honestly, I hate to say it because I'm rooting for him so much, being like the only American driver, and really the only American driver since like Andretti, right?
Yeah.
It's just he's not performing. Like if it were my team, he would not have a drive. I don't think he's doing terrible. I'll say like it wasn't like the Mazepin era for Haas.
No, definitely not.
And even I think Mick Schumacher had a lot of errors his rookie season. So I don't think that Sargent's really having a lot of those errors. I think he's just not quite performing as high, and showing how much performance Albon's getting highlights the difference. Now, Albon's not rookie, right? He's got a lot of experience, and he's really good. Do I secretly hope that Williams gives him another year? Absolutely. But
I feel like most of these guys get a 2-year deal, so I don't know. I thought I heard somewhere that he only has a 1-year deal. I don't know where he's going to go other than that. He's probably going to end up being a reserve guy at best.
I think a lot of the rookies only get 1 year potentially, unless
I think Mick had 2.
Piastri probably had 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, not to jump forward a little bit, but just because it's on top of my head. Logan was fighting off Alonso on the last lap of Singapore, so we'll dive into that a little bit more in a little bit. But so that was kind of cool to see. But
Yeah.
it's like his only moment of greatness. I think his best finish this year is a 12th. So I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not where he needs to be too. Like if he was banging out 12th all year long,
Yeah,
that'd be a different story.
for sure.
But since he's 12th, then an 18th, then a DNF, then a didn't start, and then you're just like, goodness gracious, what's going to happen?
Mhm.
So yeah, so I mean, well, up until this point, though, Red Bull's just on a tear. Monza, I think we talked about this in a previous episode. It's like I feel like one of the most boring races to watch, especially when it's such top line speed heavy. With Red Bulls being so fast, I mean, Ferrari definitely brought their game there, and obviously showed up in quali. Sick for Sainz and in the Ferrari guys, but you kind of knew it was only a matter of time when in Max is just going to stalk you like a shark, right? He's just going to follow you until you make that mistake or you're not paying attention, and then he's going to get you. They definitely made him work a little bit more for it, but it wasn't like he was struggling. I think he was just like that showed actually a lot of maturity on Max's part too. Like he wasn't overdriving the car. He was just like, cool, I'm just going to sit here until you give me the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, the whole weekend for Monza showed that he had the pace, right? So I don't think he was nervous at all. Like clearly, like he wasn't worried in the slightest. I still chose him for fantasy for Monza because, like,
why not?
Yeah, and I mean, he set an all-time record, right? Which is cool. It's cool to see that they're like really performing that high. I also thought it was cool to see Singapore happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Monza was not much. There's not much to talk about. It was just like, yeah, we stalked Red Bull stalked them, and then eventually made the pass. Was there something I'm missing? I can't remember. I thought something
No,
else happened, but I
I
can't
think
remember what it
what
was.
I enjoyed about Monza was seeing, the Ferraris kind of step up. This is the first time really, I think, all season and maybe even in the last 2 seasons that I felt like, wow, okay, like they did okay with strategy and they did good in quali and they had good race pace and so just because that team has such heritage,
Right.
you want to see them doing well at least. So I thought that was kind of cool to see them start to pull out. I like Leclerc, I like Sainz. I do think it's interesting to see that at the current moment, it seems like Sainz is kind of their number one driver. He's leading Charles in the championship. It's not it's not crazy. And
But doesn't I'm pretty sure Charles already signed his contract, right? So Charles is
yeah, I mean,
leaving, but
Charles
Sainz,
is
I'm
kind
pretty
of
sure
their golden boy.
Sainz doesn't have a contract yet.
I don't know. Does
No,
he?
actually, no. Sainz, I thought I heard. I don't know if it's officially signed or not, but I thought he's going to the Audi team in 2025.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure that's where he's going, and so, but I don't know where he's going to drive until then. So I don't know if he's at Ferrari until then or how that works. But I know there's mega rumor on that. I don't know if it's solidified inked. I remember seeing it somewhere like a couple weeks ago. So, but yeah, it is funny though to see their golden boy not doing as great. I think Charles is a little bit of a head case still.
Yeah. I
and
mean,
he
he's
can't.
really good at qualifying,
Mhm.
and then he just can't seem to continue that pace for the whole race.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, just seeing Ferrari put it all back together, like put a whole package, put a solid weekend, a solid result in was good to see. Right, not a DNF, not a mechanical, whatever.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit of hope, but then you also don't want to get your hopes up too much. But then fast forward to this weekend, Singapore, which is insane to see the Red Bulls not even make it out of Q2, which was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And then
And almost kind of on merit, right? It wasn't necessarily that they totally screwed up, like a little bit, but also they just did not get the setup right. The car was not doing well.
I know they changed the track a little bit too, right? There's a couple less corners, or they moved corners around. So now you go over the bridge.
They took out the whole section that was going, like underneath.
Yeah.
So now it's just a straight shot instead of it was like another U.
Right. So I don't know how much that played a factor, right? Like if their cornering's better or well, but they're known for top line speed too, so that shouldn't make a big difference. But yeah, I mean, and it was crazy to see like when I saw, the free practice notes and people were like, oh, Max is so far off. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, Max will show up when it counts. And I think Max is at the point too when he was and it's a lot when a lot of young athletes go pro, right? They get so caught up in like, oh, I need a win, or oh, I need to put up a good result, whether that's fighting, whether that's racing, whatever. Now I think he's in the point he's like, okay, I've got my titles, I've got my wins. Yeah, I was this weekend's just not my weekend. Like I gotta settle. And granted, like the car wasn't where it needed to be either. So he's probably just like, I'm gonna take what I can get. And for him to go be 17th with 20 laps to go and then still put it in points, I mean, that shows a good drive. There's just maturity and a good drive. Like, but that's expected too, right? Like it's only a matter of time till somebody that's a championship guy and the guy that's going to win the title. Like if he would have just drove around and finished 15th, then I would have been like, dude, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
I mean, he did what he needed to do, got his points, and he'll wrap up the title in the next 2 or 3 races.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much got the title in the bag.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have anything else to prove at this point. I still think he's got a big ego and he wants to do well, but any racer does, right? I mean,
The other thing I did that VSC came out at the wrong time, like literally what 2 laps before that or after they pitted. So he's just like,
Yeah.
man, if they could have hung out for like a couple more laps, and that would have helped him a little bit. I don't know how much it would have changed. Actually, that's one I do have a rant about this race. So why does Logan punt the wall, okay, and they pull out a full safety car, but then Ocon's car is parked in the middle of the racetrack and they don't pull a full safety car? Like that, like FIA is still just getting it wrong. Regardless of
Well,
what you say or what you believe, the FIA is wrong.
I mean, I think that they have a lot of different variables, right? And
Mhm.
maybe that's what's tough. When somebody hits the wall, generally, depending on where it is, like they might have to repair Tech Pro.
Right.
The other thing with Sargent was there was a ton of carbon fiber all over the track,
Correct.
so they can't just let a marshal go out there while they're
No, right.
And as far as like Alcon, his car just stopped, right? So there
Mhm.
wasn't debris on the track. There wasn't. They just had to get the car moved. Um, so and it depends on where they are on the track, if it's easy to do or if it's
Right.
gonna, all
Buy
of
an
that
escape
takes
route or something like that.
yeah, it takes a factor. What I'm not necessarily I don't care either way because the weekend turned out how it did, but I thought it was really interesting that during qualifying, Max had 3 instances of impeding and never got one penalty.
Did anybody get a
Um,
penalty for impeding?
I believe so. I think somebody did.
I just think this track was just a terrible track for quality, anyways, because everybody was complaining about somebody. And the
Yeah,
cars were getting so stacked up because everybody's trying to time their run, right? They're trying to get
yeah.
a little bit of slipstream. They're trying to throw down their heater, and everybody's getting in the way of somebody. Um, and so it's obviously a bummer to see. And
Yeah.
regardless if you're a Max fan, if you're not, like if somebody's doing it more often, then yeah, somebody should get a penalty. And
Yeah.
maybe because it was such a common thing, like everybody's
Well,
struggling. I don't know.
I think the one that speaks to me the most was when Max is sitting stopped at the green light in the pit lane and nobody can go past him.
I saw the clip of that.
And they basically lied essentially.
What did they actually say? I never caught it.
So Max was about to say, because his engineer was like, "Oh, like is there a problem? Like what's going on?" And
Hmm.
Max was like, "Oh no, I'm just waiting." And then he just kind of stops, right? Like
Hmm.
he was like he was creating a distance in traffic,
Right.
but he's holding up people in the pit lane,
Right.
which is technically illegal,
Hmm.
right? You're not allowed to hop in the pit lane like that.
Right.
Um, and then his race engineer goes, basically covers up like, oh yeah, no, do the reset, everything looks good now. Like so makes it seem as if he had an issue and that's
Right.
why he
Right.
was stopped. Then I guess I read later on that the FIA was saying like, oh, like you're just trying to create a better distance in traffic, so we'll let it slide. But it's like, okay, but that's a clear violation of the rule. There's no rule that says, oh, it's okay to do it to create like that's a strategy for the driver and that doesn't take place in the pit lane.
Right. Right.
So I just find like, and that was one of 3 instances that he specifically had um with impeding one. The other one being against Yuki Tsunoda and the AlphaTauri,
I
like
remember Yuki
really in
was
his
hot.
way.
Yuki was
Yuki
like,
was super hot, and then apparently, they all have to see the stewards afterwards.
hmm.
Well, a representative, nobody showed up for AlphaTauri, so they kind of threw it out. Which
Well,
okay, that's
that's
their
on
team, but that's
AlphaTauri though
also
for not showing up. I mean, Yuki. Yuki
but
needs a ride just
you
as much
think
as
they're
anybody
gonna,
else
but
next
they're
year.
not gonna, give Max a penalty, right?
Oh, Yuki's gonna have a drive next year. As much as some other these other channels like Yuki. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I like Yuki, but at the same time, like he hasn't done anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think people like him because he's controversial as far
Yeah.
as his temper, and
Yeah.
he's like, I don't think he's bad, but yeah, I don't think he's.
I don't necessarily think he deserves. I think he's. I would say, does he have more talent than some people? For sure. But according to his results, he's no better than Lance. Like
Yeah, I mean,
Lance has performed better. Lance is higher up, and Aston Martin has more points than AlphaTauri. I never thought I'd see the day where AlphaTauri is the last place team on the Manufacturers Cup. So, or Constructors Cup, sorry. But yeah, I think that's super interesting to see, and I don't know, like, what are they gonna just restart the whole AlphaTauri team? Like, well, I mean, obviously they are because it's getting bought out, but
So I've heard now that they're not selling off the team. They're selling off the naming rights for the team.
so then they can just throw a Red
So
Bull car in there, and well,
basically,
now,
so it's still going to stay Red Bull's sister company, but they're going to be, I don't know, Hugo
my
Boss Bulls or something stupid,
right,
which brings up controversy as far as like, well, so
got to keep up with Tommy Hilfiger.
yeah, they can just every season like rent it out to the highest bidder, and it's not exactly about what a team anymore. I don't know. I mean,
Well, that's like any
they're
motorsport, right?
they're
Like
driving billboards anyway.
if somebody's willing to throw money at it, whether it's dirt bikes, whether it's NASCAR, that's half of it works. Like you get sponsored by somebody and they're throwing their logo on the side of the car.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Formula One's the same.
yeah, so it's like
Look at the cars.
well, it's kind of dumb though. It's like, okay, there's a cost cap anyway, so it's regardless. It's like as long as you get your money to cover the cost cap, like
Yeah.
what does it matter? Like as long as you can produce and like build your car the way you want to or need to, who cares who's on the like who cares how much money? Okay, Hugo Boss is going to pay you $5 million, but the cost cap you only need 3 million.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with that extra money? Just making money? Like just because I guess I don't
Probably.
know.
Probably. I mean, these companies, want to make money too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak too much to the impeding thing. I didn't pay a ton of attention to it. I thought it was everybody was getting in everybody's way at that point. I can understand why somebody is frustrated and why there wasn't a penalty handed out. I think regardless if you're on the same team, parent company, baby team, whatever it is, like whether that was Mercedes and Williams and nobody from Williams showed up, or fill in the blank, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari.
The governing body should be able to step in and say,
Yeah.
well, this is a rule violation.
Yeah.
I mean, how many other times do we see it where drivers getting 5-second penalties?
Just because I don't show up to my ticket hearing doesn't mean I'm not going to get a ticket. So
Yeah,
it's
you still have to
like,
pay the fine.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So like, what? Just because AlphaTauri didn't show up doesn't mean like anybody should slip. But also if Yuki was that pissed off, he should have still shown up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Would have done him better to show up.
I think it
because his
just
car's
shows
look like shit. So
yeah, right. A little bit of a flaw in the FIA again.
yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking about with the FIA. Just like be consistent. Like if you got a car dead on a main straight, like I think that calls for a safety car, not a virtual
safety car.
And I just think like, okay, if you're gonna call that, he drove. Yeah, there's debris everywhere, but did you clean up all that debris? Because clearly you didn't, because there's debris still everywhere when you restarted the race. And yes, I get it. He drug it wherever, and like you can't get a street sweeper out there, but you called a mandatory safety car for that, but you're not going to call for somebody that's dead in the water on the side of the road. I don't know. I think that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on where, right? Like, is it off the racing line enough where it's not a danger?
Of off the racing line, Lance Stroll yards it in qualifying and then almost gets waxed by one of the McLarens. I forgot which one it was, but he like the one angle doesn't look that bad, and then the second angle when it's behind like this and you see him spin, he almost gets just wrecked by one of the McLarens, and I was like, "Holy moly, that could have been really bad."
Yeah, that was a nasty crash too. That was huge.
Took him out of the race. I don't know if that was injury wise, maybe he hurt his hand again, or if it was just
potentially. Yeah, that car was destroyed.
Well, I mean, look at mixed cars though. Mixed showed up for the race on Sunday, and he's wrecked some cars in Monaco and whatnot.
Well, it makes you think too, like if it was his wrist or was something, well, then they rebuilt the car and the secondary driver steps in.
Yeah, so I wonder if they just didn't want to spend money on rebuilding it.
I don't know. Yeah,
and
maybe
running the risk of throwing it back in.
Potentially, because it's interesting to see now with the cost caps too. like they brought a ton of upgrades in the first part of the season. We're doing really, really well.
Mhm.
They've kind of tapered off now. Are they reaching that point in the cost cap where they're like low on budget?
That's
I,
like
I don't
the
know. There's 8 races left.
that's kind of the bummer about the whole cost cap thing is because it kind of prevents. I think it could prevent some racing unless you have like a great CPA, right? That's like gonna bullshit as well. Like Red Bull and Mercedes
Yeah.
got a great CPA, so they're gonna bullshit their way and figure out a way. Hey, let's
Oh, it was
right off the
catering.
lasagna, and
Oh, it was
let's like,
catering.
oh, that
That's
was
why.
gas and employee costs
Yeah.
versus Aston Martin, which you would think Lance
It
Stroll.
wasn't car design. We went over on catering.
Yeah,
Oh, big deal.
so you would think they would all at that level have somebody that can figure it out, but
Well, and I think now with as many of those like with as popular as the sport has become in the US, and there's a lot of money in the US to throw into it. Now we have 3 races here,
possible US based
and a
team.
possible US based, like other than Haas, right? An actual US like team. What if we start raising the cost cap, or it's like
Well, if
I
you have another
understand
team.
why they did the cost cap, but I
Mhm.
think now a lot of those smaller teams are starting to get more money
Mhm.
to be able to throw more at it, you know?
I'd,
So
I'd say too with another team, kind of like inflation, I guess. Like with another team added in there, you should up the cost cap. Like, are we all running on the same budget? Like, you add another team, you should add another, I don't know, 10% or 20%, whatever the
and I
number
think they
is.
do. I just don't know exactly what.
I thought I heard or read something that it's pretty much up to the FIA at this point. Like, the Andretti's, right? Or Rossi.
Andretti.
Andretti, they basically proven everything they need to do. It's basically just waiting for the FIA to say, like, here's the stamp, go for
Yeah,
it.
they've paid everything. They've done like I hope they get it.
I do too. I
Obviously,
think it'll
like,
help with the racing too. Because I mean, because like right now, like the last few years, you always have like 17th to 20th battling, and you have from 17th to like 9th battling.
yeah.
It was interesting to see though this race too. Like you saw 2 get different groups. You saw like the top 5 guys, and you saw like the bottom 20 guys. So, yeah. So I think,
Yeah, I mean this racetrack in particular, it's hard to pass, right?
yeah. Okay,
man.
actually, bless you. Let's double down on that. I thought this race was like the most boring race to watch, other than the last 5 laps.
I'd say the last 10 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
like
was.
some people are commenting it's the best race since Abu Dhabi 2021. No, I wouldn't say that. It was literally everybody cruising around. They were trying to, and I get it from the racer's perspective. You're trying to make your tires last, and you definitely saw some people benefit from that. Some people will definitely struggle. I mean, Red Bull obviously got it wrong when trying to make it last as long as they did. And given their circumstances, they really had nothing to like. They had to do that. That was like the card they had to play. Like, hey, we're gonna play the long game, and they just got shafted.
I think they made the most of it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I
They
think
knew they
Max
weren't going
still
to win,
drove.
but they could maybe.
I thought Max made some really cool, like risky, but not dangerous. Some really cool passes
for sure.
Like okay, against midfield teams, right? Big deal, but
see the racecraft from that though. Like,
yeah,
most guys would not have thought about doing that.
No.
And then there's some other guys who
just the kind of unorthodox places, right? Like really tight turns and being able to put it in there and having the trust that the other car is gonna not put you into the wall.
Like him and K-Mag, that was like a gnarly battle. Like they were like almost wheel interlocked for a minute there. And that's props to K-Mag for being just like, and I'm sure Max is like, I know I can trust K-Mag and like stay in it longer than most guys may have.
Yeah.
And they could have easily like, there's been a couple passes that probably should have been wrecks, but that just shows how high level they're driving at. And that's all the way back to the 19th place guy, right? Yeah, but I don't think that this was the best race. I've seen way better races.
Yeah, and honestly, the adjustment to the track, I didn't really like. I really like playing the game specifically. That section of that track is so hard to nail.
If you nail it good, it feels great, and then if you
but it's like to nail it 60 laps in a row is really difficult, and I know like how many times just the AI come up to, they're either on you or they passing you because you miss one of those sections. So I was kind of bummed to see that because I think it opens up a lot more opportunity for people to make some passes. Now that it's just
a lot of
straight, it's like
gained right there.
Totally.
Now it's just like,
and it makes the final corner
90,
a lot trickier
90,
too.
yeah.
You still have that kind of double apex, which we saw Max like eat it on last year, I think.
Like that, or then I think he qualified too.
In
Like
qualifying.
he drug the whole center of the car across that curb, and that's obviously where Stroll crashed too. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I hope there's a better race this year, because if that's like the hype of the year, like, and I think everybody just thinks it's the best race of the year because Red Bull didn't win.
I think that's why people are excited. I'm excited about that.
It was, I mean, I'm totally, that's fine. Like, and nobody appreciates it. Like, obviously, what's going on, and I could say that for motocross, right? Like, you watch Ricky Carmichael go win every race, and it's kind of like, oh god, this is boring.
Yeah.
Or James or whoever, fill in the blank. And you're like, and then I look back, I'm like, dude, I was witnessing like history right there.
You know what I think has been interesting for me as like a Lewis fan, because I was like, obviously when he's winning, you're like, oh fuck yeah, that's cool. I never saw an issue because I was a fan,
Right?
And I always thought everybody just hated Lewis. But now seeing that people still have the same reaction when Max is winning, it's like, oh, okay, you really are more of, you just like the racing.
Yeah.
You want to see multiple people battling. And I have a lot more respect for that, I think. And that's been cool for me to see.
Don't get me wrong, I do love seeing the 4 different manufacturers battle on the last 5 laps of the race. That was
cool.
That was cool racing. I wish you could see that throughout the entire race, though, right? Not just
and
come down to last. Like, I'm waking up at God knows what hour to watch everybody follow each other around. It's like, we might as well go drive down the freeway together and then say, hey, the last 10 minutes of this drive, we're just going to be
we're going to race.
Yeah, we're going to go for it. That was kind of like, that was what, for me, I was like, God, this is like a waste of my time. Like, I could have just fast forwarded it until that point.
I watched it live.
Yeah, so that's the only,
I will say,
bummer.
Yeah, like if they would have made it like a 2-stop, right? Some people were trying to do the 1-stop and really like, stretching out the legs. I think making it, like you saw Mercedes, right? Like how much racier they were after they made that second stop. And like, I think if everybody would have been on a 2-stop strategy, it would have made a lot more racing.
I could see that.
But I think Sainz's racecraft and being smart about it was really awesome.
Him
for him.
Allowing
Lando
to get close enough to, like,
that's kind of epic, right? Because he knew, like, and honestly, Lando stood no chance without it, right? Like, he would not have been on the podium. He probably would have been 5th. Like, and so to see them be able to keep in that and hold off the Mercedes, I think that was cool.
Do you think, though, Lando doesn't pass him because of that, because he was helping him out, or do you think he just didn't have the pace to get him?
He doesn't have the pace.
Okay, because I was curious. I'm like, I wonder if he's not giving it to him, but you know what I mean? Like, oh man, he's helping me out, but like he couldn't get it close enough to like send it on him. Like, do you think he still, like, last lap, do you think he sends it on him if he's close enough?
Oh, 100%.
I would think so too. But at the same time, I started thinking about it. He's like, yeah, man. In the post race interview, he said, oh, he helped me out a lot. But also it benefited everybody. It wasn't just Lando. It helped Carlos, because it was basically Carlos using Lando as defense. So it's like shielding him for sure.
Yeah. Because he also wasn't worried, right? Like, if it would have been George there, he would have never given him the DRS. He would have tried to stay as far as possible, because he knew that like they would have passed him. Right?
They had the pace, I think.
Yeah. Where McLaren, whether it was just tires or what, like he was not anywhere to be able to be like a threat. And Carlos knew that, because Carlos was holding back the pace so much.
Yeah.
He knew that he could extend that if Lando got close.
It was kind of funny to hear like the shit talking from George too. Like, you're like, oh yeah, he says he's got in a second. He's like, oh, I'm surprised he didn't say he has 2. Which I'm curious. I'm like, okay, how much more pace do you think he had? Was he really driving at? And also thinking about, he says, I have a second more pace. Like, okay, then on a scale of like, this is 100, is he driving at 75%, or is he driving at like 85? And he's like, I can push it to 95 to get that second more pace. But it's like, okay, then what's George driving at? It like makes you think of like strategy wise, like, okay, how much is Carlos holding back? How much is George pushing? And
I think everybody. At some point George was doing some tire savings, and then they decided not to. And I think he still wasn't able to catch him. But at that point, Carlos upped his pace.
Right.
So I think he was obviously sandbagging probably 75%.
I would think with him to be, well, and then a second, you're like, okay, like a second, which in any racing, a second is a lot. but then it's like, okay, like, but a second isn't a lot at the same time when you have a 7-time champ behind you. You got a couple of young guns looking for their first win or first win, second win. And then anybody else that could have been there kind of flirting with it, but obviously it just came down to those 4 guys. Lando got lucky, he clipped the wall, but not a bad.
Yeah.
And then I think it just blocked George's view enough
I
that where
think
he
so,
didn't
yeah.
see it.
Well, and they're following so tight,
Yeah.
right? So he was really just like, I mean, a centimeter is different. Like he was a centimeter off.
From the original angle because it's like this way and they make that left coming at the camera and you see his car. Like I saw the sparks and I was like, that's not good. And I see him keep going straight. I'm like, holy shit, what the hell just happened?
I thought he just missed the braking at first. I didn't realize he hit the wall, you know, clipped it. And then obviously you see the, you know,
and then
replays.
And then the only thing that does is help everybody else, right? That behind him, because that gives everybody else another point. So that helped Max, that helped Sergio, that helped all those lower guys. And I don't know what he ended up dropping to because I don't know how far ahead they were. But
he was out. He DNF'd.
Yeah, he DNF'd. But like sometimes, like if you complete so many laps, you could still be 15th.
Oh, right.
Versus the other, yeah. So
like a lap behind.
Yeah. Bummer for him to drive the wheels off that thing and then ruin the car. Which I mean, for Mercedes, it doesn't matter. They have the money. So.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's just a bummer for George because he drove a really, really good race overall, and then to have that kind of be the caveat. But I think, you know, even Lewis and Toto both kind of commented like, it's like he'll shake back. It's not going to be a big deal. No, they're not worried about it. Like, yeah,
it's not like he's going to lose his ride because of that. Like,
no, I mean he's been driving really good too, right?
Maybe if that was Logan,
qualifying.
Like if that was Logan, like dude, you're on the verge of like just putting in a solid drive and then you go and ruin the car. That's a different story. But like,
yeah, and I don't think it was like George necessarily like having a mental issue. You know, like he even said, well, maybe it was a lack in like focus or concentration. You know, but I think when you're following that close, you know,
I think that was the last lap, right? It was on the last lap. So
lap,
it's like he's at that point, you're just sending it and like hoping for the best, and like that just
because
that
he was
little
really
thing
trying to at least get second.
Yeah,
you know,
and he was about to wreck Lando for it. Goddamn,
it was close, man, close. And you know, I was like, all right, well, good work for Lewis not hitting him too, or not clipping the wall too, or you know. I mean, Lewis has got a lot more experience. Yeah. I think Lewis even had more pace, honestly, on the last few laps. Like, I think Lewis
did get really close
on George's fucking ass.
I'm curious, like, why didn't Lewis try to pass him then? I mean,
I think because George had such a great race, you know, and gave up track position to make that fight. I think, you know, they allowed him, like team orders probably allowed him to stay forward.
What about?
I thought Lewis was gonna just try and pass him at some point.
I mean, what about the Mercedes or the Ferrari team orders? With the hey, you need to back up 3 seconds. Things like I'm trying, but I like can't like. Which I thought that was crazy. They wanted 3 seconds. I'm like, what? Like, why? Like, everything's going fine. Like, why do you want to back it up that much? Like,
well, and then that goes to show like sacrificing Charles for Sainz win.
Yeah, which is at the end of the day, they needed a win so bad. Because
yeah, I think as far as the team's concerned, that was the best option.
I think they knew Carlos was a little bit more mentally stable than Charles.
Well, I just think like, especially, I mean, he was crushing it through practice. He qualified first. You know, he was leading the entire.
He deserved it at that point.
Yeah, he led the entire race. I mean, he really dictated the pace.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, you know, the safety car restart, everything. I think that he did just a phenomenal racecraft the entire race. Now it made for most of the race being a little boring for fans,
for sure.
Because he was dictating that. But as far as like his performance, I think is awesome. I think he got driver of the day too. I think he should have.
No, yeah, he definitely deserved it. I'm curious to see like, I don't understand how Red Bull got it so wrong.
I don't know either.
Like, they were so far. I mean, yeah, they're top 5, but that was kind of like a little bit of help with the top 5,
right?
Like,
yeah,
I think they're top. Like, there were
how many people went out? 3 or 4 people DNF.
Yeah, 4 DNF'd, and then, no, I mean their pace. Obviously, they qualified 12, so I don't know how much they can change from qualifying to the race because I know Parc Ferme.
Yeah, I don't think they can actually change a whole lot, honestly.
I mean, at that point,
they can change setup a little bit, but I don't think they can change like any of the variables, like the wings and all that. Why don't they
just take the L, take the grid penalty, and then at least in race year, like at that point, like if you want to keep the streak alive, right? So it's like if you want to keep that thing going, like you might as well Max is a good enough driver, or do it on one of them. Don't do it on both of them. Like do it to Max, and Max is like, cool, yeah, I'll take the 5-place grid penalty and I'll drive my way through the field.
Yeah.
Then do you think with a better setup, do you think they would have challenged Carlos?
I think they didn't know how to set it up better.
That's probably yeah.
I don't.
They probably
I think they would have
like,
if
they could do this, but I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, because even Max had said like I think for either qualifying or the race like that they tried a little extra because they thought they could and it didn't work out. So I think they just got it wrong.
Because in free practice they weren't really up there either. So like
All of
they
it,
tried to make those changes.
I took them off my fantasy because they weren't performing. That and I knew that I had to make a really
big
change if I was going to take the lead in our fantasy championship.
I think Max. I kept Max because I thought he was going to show up, but then he what's it called? He made a lot of passes, so I think I didn't see. I got second in points for that day. I did look that up. I got like 260 points, 223, 260, something like that.
I had like 360.
Yeah, no, you were up there, and but I think because he made so many passes, that's what saved me.
Well, that's usually what happens. Like, I don't worry about qualifying because most of those top guys will make so many passes during the race, they'll actually end up with more fantasy points.
My qualifying before, but garbage. You had like 70, I had like 30, 33 or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I did decent because I like looked at Raina's like, oh yeah, 29. I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm right around the same. Like, and then I looked at yours, like, good God, like what the hell?
I just had a feeling, man, and I changed it up, and I just was like, well, I went for broke.
I was thinking about, I think I grabbed Lewis, but then it basically ruined my money situation. So I was like, well. Also I kept Max, so I was like trying to figure out. And I wanted to keep Max. I was moving people around. I'm like, well, I can only have 3 transfer slots. Like, what the heck?
I know. I actually took a 4-point penalty to.
I did that last week.
To another transfer because I switched Red Bull for Ferrari, and actually Ferrari's performance in Monza gave me the confidence after all those practices to say like, all right, I think they're going to be able to do good this weekend. Mm-hmm. They've been crushing everything, so I'm just gonna do it and go for broke. It allowed me a lot more money to play with. So then I was able to get Lando and take Joe out, in some of those. Yeah, bless you.
Thank you.
I was able to take Hulkenberg out, and I think I forget who I put in, but I was able to put in some bigger names instead of having like a couple really big names, and then some not, back of the field guys. So that helped me a lot. I also watched all the practices, and I watched I got a fucking early to set my lineup before qualifying at 5 a.m. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I put in some of the work for that, but it was still luck. It's like just a hope.
Oh yeah, because I mean, Ferrari could crash or Lewis could crash, whoever could crash. I mean, right? So
I was thinking, God, I should have put George in there, and then all right, well, good thing I didn't. I won the last lap of the race,
I think I looked at him too, and then you would have been like stoked the entire time, and then that on the last lap, you're like, oh.
So I had Sainz, and I put double on him. That worked out for me, both for qualifying and for the race.
Nice. Oh, I didn't even think about putting double on him because I left my my DRX on Max.
Yeah,
which still probably wasn't bad, but
it still helped, right? And then I had Lando, I had Lewis. It was like all my guys were like in the top. I had Piastri, which still got like top 8 or 9, something like that. So he did decent, and he started pretty far back, so he made a lot of passes that helped me.
Yeah,
I think I had Albon too. He didn't do like super great, but he didn't.
I think I had Albon too. Either Xander or Monza. I forgot which one. I switched 2 drivers and the team, but I only had 2 transfers at the time, and so I took a -4 in there. I was like, oh shoot, I guess that counts for that. Which I mean makes sense. I sound like an idiot, but like. I was like, oh, I thought it was just drivers was the transfer. Yeah. And so any transfer, and I was like, shit, that sucks. So, but yeah, and then I think Raina had Yuki, so she was pissed about that. She's like half asleep. She wakes up. She's like, what happened to Yuki? So that was a bummer though for him. I mean, what did he just blow a motor? I assume something like that.
Yeah,
because it looked like he just basically pulled off, and his car was like smoked. I don't know. It's not looking good for Yuki or any of the AlphaTauri guys. Actually, I had Lawson. I did have Lawson.
Yeah, man, he's been doing good.
I was really surprised. Did he get in the top 10?
I think he got 9th.
Yeah.
Or
I knew he was flirting around it.
Like that. Yeah.
Until I got 2 points for him in qualifying because he made it like through, which I was really surprised at.
And he made it into Q3. Yeah, he's racing well, man. That was exciting to see.
I saw
When's Daniel back? Is he back?
I saw he's
Japan?
going to Oz for physio to do some appointments and then to test. And then from there, his scar was pretty gnarly on his wrist. Like they had it stapled up. I don't know if you saw
Oh, I
that
didn't see
picture.
it.
It's pretty gnarly. He had like a big like group of staples like right here.
Mm. It must have compounded.
He
that, huh?
might
Like, broke the skin.
he might be driving
Or I guess
Japan.
there's-
When is Japan? Is that next weekend
Next
or is it 2
weekend.
weekends?
I don't know. We have to look it up, but I think it's
Like,
next weekend.
And then they here. Probably should know this, if we're gonna finish it.
Yeah, you think
Pause, time out.
I can cut this?
Can you? Are you gonna though? Because I feel like sometimes you say you can and then you don't.
Depends on how much work I have.
Oh, Japan is
How
next
many
weekend,
hours-
22nd
yeah, I
to the
thought so.
24th. So
I
man, we
thought
got
so.
like a lot of. So then we have a break after that Qatar.
Oh yeah, is it Qatar
Actually-
next and then Austin?
Yeah, which actually is pretty wild. Is so they actually did group these out pretty well.
On the back, like
the back end, so it's like United States, Mexico, Brazil, United States,
but then Abu Dhabi.
and then you go back to Abu Dhabi. So we're all about sustainability.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see. I wonder if Lawson will get to drive next year. I hope Danny comes back, and I hope he can drive at least like the last. I hope he gets to
Yeah.
drive Vegas because he wants to drive Vegas. I wonder if he'll be fired up for that.
maybe it'll be Danny and Lawson next year.
I can
Does
see that.
Yuki have a contract?
Not that I know of, and I mean, to be honest, like I said, Yuki hasn't really been performing great. I think he's got like 3 points all year long.
Yeah,
And I think the 3 points are literally like he finished 10th, like maybe twice, maybe a ninth and a 10th, maybe a ninth and a 10th. I don't think he's been in the points. And this is nothing against Yuki. It's just that like he's not driving.
Yeah, I mean, AlphaTauri is also just not doing great this year.
So I heard that basically AlphaTauri's going to get they're going to get the Red Bull car from this year, right? But at the rate we're going, we're barely halfway through the season and the car is like almost outdated. Like based on this race, like if we go solely based on this race, like now Red Bull's a mid-pack car, which is they're basically where AlphaTauri should have been at the beginning of the year.
I mean, this is one race, right? I
mean,
I think Red
overall,
Bull's going to be back to the top next weekend.
Yeah, I would say, what do we say? Japan's pretty fast. It's kind of bank corners.
It's got that one real long straight and kind of like banked corner.
Kind of like a hybrid of Xander and Monza, I think. Kind of like very fast and straight, but then it's got some corners.
Yeah, just long, like some other
long straightaways, little quick. That's the one thing I hate about Monza. It's like it's kind of a boring. It's like
I thought Monza was pretty exciting overall, though.
I think because there's not enough turns in it. It's like long sweeping turns,
like a NASCAR track.
Dude, honestly, it's like straight,
not
little
quite
S,
an oval, but
sweeping, little S, sweeping, little S, straight, but then turn around, and it's like I don't know. It's definitely seen some better tracks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those iconic ones, right? It's like Monaco.
I'm curious since Vegas is the new, they'll have a brand new track, right? I wonder how the traction is going to hold up there, or like if it's going to be high bite, if it's going to be low bite compared to like like Miami. Everybody says like there's not enough traction there, so I'm curious how Vegas will play out compared to that time of the year.
Well, it'll be nighttime.
Yeah, and then it's not going to be super hot.
Race, so I mean, it could
in November. Like it's
still could be 80s, 90s at night.
You think? I don't think it'll be 90s at night.
I don't know. Let's look. I mean,
maybe well, not, right now it's a bad example. Like if I type in Vegas right now, Vegas is going to show it's like. I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, actually.
I mean, it's not much different than us here in Phoenix, but
yeah,
the nights will get colder.
So, like, Vegas for tonight at 2 a.m. is 73 degrees. So they're probably gonna race at what?
I think they're gonna race at 8, 9, or 10, yeah, something like that.
So right now, if they race today, they would be 87.
See, told you.
But that's
in 2 months it'll be
way cooler.
It'll be cooler.
Like we're wearing wetsuits on the lake in tickets.
You maybe.
Black Friday last year, we were both wearing wetsuits.
All right, I probably will too.
I might go heater top only.
And heater bottoms for sure.
I don't have those. I don't have the luxury of those.
You should get some. They're nice.
So Japan should be fun. I mean,
I wonder if there's gonna be rain because it always rains in Suzuka too.
So that makes it like hopefully a little bit more fun. Levels that out a little bit.
Yeah.
Does Danny drive good in the roulette? I can't remember.
Yeah, he's usually all right. I mean, the really good wet drivers are Lewis, Max.
Yeah. They're just good at driving.
The British are like George, even Lando.
I wonder why they could drive so good. It's like, do you get practice driving in the rain there or what?
Yeah, it rains all the time.
Well, I know, but like you don't get to drive an F1 car in the rain.
Yeah, but you know, like
is it
it's
just
like
from karting? I guess like they drive in the rain karting.
oh yeah, they drive a lot of rain. It's just like I grew up in Wyoming and it snows a lot. And you get really good at driving in the snow and understanding when you're about to lose traction,
right?
And how to handle when you do,
right.
You know, and it's just something like that you drive in it for so long, that becomes really easy to tell.
Yeah,
you know, where like other people who have never done it,
California.
Oh my god, they're scared, right?
Californians like, see rain and water, and they're like, oh god.
Yeah, just like same. Like I lived in Seattle forever, right? So same thing. Like you start to get a feel for that difference. And when it first starts raining, the roads are a lot slicker because all the oil and stuff mixes with the water, right? If it's been raining for a few days, there's a lot more traction because it's not as oily.
Right.
You know, so just, but you can feel it too.
I can feel it in my nuggets.
Exactly, right? In the oil nuggets.
Anything else? I think we covered everything.
No, man, I think that's the biggest thing.
Not much to talk about when Red Bull's always winning, except for this last weekend.
Yeah, I think it was an exciting shakeup for just, the season in general. I'm not sure, they compared it to Mercedes in 2019 when they won all those races and then somehow, lost it in Singapore too. Just for some reason, that track for whatever reason is difficult. I don't know. I think it's interesting to see, their record breaking was they broke it by one. And that was it, right?
I'm not gonna lie, I did want to see it go a little bit longer. I thought that would have been cool to see, but at the same time, I don't mind not seeing it happen either.
Yeah.
Like it's like, at the same time, like, are we ever gonna see that again? I don't know. I think now with these new car
the
regulations and stuff, I think it makes everybody a lot closer. I mean, Red Bull obviously got it right this time around, but I think everybody's gonna keep catching them each year until we get the new redesign in 26. So I don't know if we'll see that again in 26. It would be cool for the sake of history to see a team go 24 races and like win everything. That would like whether it's one driver or both drivers.
Yeah,
it'd be just cool to see that. But like, holy crap, like that's insane. I don't know if that'll ever happen though. I think there's so many variables.
Well, I mean, yeah, honestly, I thought it was really crazy that Max has won so many in a row. Even I mean, I think about all the championships that Lewis has. I think his winning has been just more consistent all year, but he's never won that many in a row.
Yeah, or like Lewis when he won as much as he did and he was so dominant, it's more so like he just very consistent. He's always a top 3 guy. Like he's either winning or he's barely or he's not.
Yeah, I mean he has 196 podiums in his career.
196? I thought it was 108.
No, it's almost 200.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because he has 103 wins.
Maybe I'm thinking of Alonso's number then. Alonso has like 108 podiums or something, or 108. No, Alonso's raced like a shit ton. I don't know. I remember
Alonso just hit 1,000 kilometers or something like that, right? Or 100,000 or a million. Yeah, he hit some crazy milestone for kilometers raced.
I'm curious when he's gonna hang it up. Do you think he sticks around next year?
Yeah, I think so. Why not? I mean, he's performing really well.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I think Lance should be out.
Oh yeah, we all think that, but
and I like Lance now. I
Lance
like
has
him for a while.
I
think he's, I just don't think compared to Alonso, he's performing anywhere close.
Right.
And I think that highlights that the team needs to make a decision. I mean, we talked about the rumor on that was that they maybe would can Alonso because it is making Lance look bad, and obviously Lance's dad wants to keep Lance in the seat.
Did you hear about that conspiracy theory about Alonso? Is that he's really younger than he believes?
Younger than he believes,
or than he looks, I guess. Or like he never aged, I guess. Okay, so it's crazy. So
so he's older than he looks. You mean?
No, he's actually like never really aged since this one crash. I forgot what race it was. I think it was Spanish GP or something like that. He had a crash in qualifying or free practice. They take him to the hospital. He was in a concussion, in a coma for a little bit, wakes up, he doesn't remember much. Well, I guess like since then something happened in this crash that like if you look at that from that crash of like 08 to now, he hasn't really aged much. Like he looks very similar. Like hair looks the same, body facial looks the same, nothing crazy. So that's why he's able to perform at like what is he like 43? Something like that. I think he's like
Somewhere,
43,
yeah.
44. And so now like he's being able to perform so well because his body or his mind never aged with his body. It's like it's a trip. I wish I could. I thought I sent it to you, but that's why like he does as well as he does. It's like a super weird conspiracy theory. I'm like, well, it kind of does make kind of sense. It makes a little bit of sense.
You and your conspiracy theories.
I mean,
Maybe he just eats baby fetuses like Tom Cruise.
canceled. Is he part of Scientology too?
Maybe he is.
Yeah, we're definitely canceled.
Yeah.
Awesome guys. Well, not to end this on a weird note, but thanks for joining in.
Yeah. Thanks
We
for all your
will-
support.
We'll probably have to do this midweek next week because I'll be gone next weekend.
Yeah, we just need to be more consistent. I need to be more consistent. Putting out ratios.
Thanks for watching. Live from the paddock.
Bye, guys.